Welcome again to the Daily Bread Bible Study. We have made it 50 days together for Wednesday, February 19th, 2020, focusing on Numbers 30 through 32. This is the second to last day, focusing on the book of Numbers, and it's 50 days of this project, 50 days in which we bend together to be able to study the Bible. So thank you for joining me for these past 50 days together. Let's look at Numbers chapter 30 and see all of the discussion that's to come about vows. We'll look at Numbers 31, look at the war against the Midian, and then we will see the disbursement that is coming up in Numbers 32 that is planned with the Reubenites, the Gadites, and another tribe as well. In Numbers 30, the vows that are made are talking about vows that should be made. Vows made by men should never be broken. And that's what we learn. Vows made by widows or divorced women should never be broken. The idea is that if you make a vow to the Lord, it should not be broken unless it's a vow made by a woman. And that can be broken if the male entrusted with her care expresses disapproval. This responsible male can be a father or a husband, and if the vows are revoked by that male, then it is forgiven by the Lord to the woman. The vows do not have to be kept. But if the vows are not revoked by the male when he either marries her or hears her make the vow, then the vow should not be broken unto the Lord. So a lot of this is put upon the males and somehow making the vows of the women that are around them the responsibility of the males who are in their lives, who have an authority figure over them. So it's very strange for our day and time because we tend to hold individuals accountable for their decisions and responsible for them, maybe with the exceptions of, say, like children and parents. But even then, too, a lot of it is we try and instill responsibility and taking ownership for your own actions and not depending upon somebody else if you make a promise. So we are called to individually keep our promises. Well, speaking of promises, there's some promises that happen in war, and one of the promises after war is how we should equitably divide what we are able to acquire, and that is the focus of Numbers 31 and 32, which in our day and time in the United States setting, we are in a time where war is less prevalent. We are pretty, I would say, privileged to not have to think too much about war in this day and time with the stability of our government, and it's much more of an economic warfare, I would say, is being fought at this point in time. But human society has had physical wars, and the people of God are going to go into many, many wars. So here in Numbers 31, we see their war against Midian. It's one of the last commands given to Moses, as we will sum up Numbers and then hear Deuteronomy, the exposition about him, talking about all of the commands that God has given them as he gives his farewell speech to them before he is taken up into the Lord in Deuteronomy. But here we have the war of Midian, and Moses is talking in Numbers 31:1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Avenge the Israelites on the Midianites. Afterwards you shall be gathered to your people," directed at Moses. Moses then calls for 1,000 capable men from each tribe, a force of 12,000 men. And they go and they kill the Midianites. They killed also Balaam, son of Beor, the one who prophesied on behalf of King Balak that the Israelites could not be stopped. But he also planned, according to extra biblical sources, Balaam was the one who put in this idea of the women, being idolatry. We have the Bible referencing it here in Numbers 31:9, that the Israelites took the women of Midian and their little ones captive, and they took all their cattle and their flocks and all their goods as booty. And then Moses becomes upset at this, saying, "Have you allowed the women to live?" These women here, on Balaam's advice, made the Israelites act treacherously against the Lord in the affair of Peor, so that the plague came upon the congregation of the Lord. Moses knows what's going on. Moses knows that even though they couldn't be cursed, that they sent in these women to lead to false worship of Baal of Peor, and so that's what Moses sees as worried about more idolatry that can follow from this. But focusing on the physical objects especially, they talked about the purification after war involves fire and water, which is interesting. It sounds a little bit like baptism, because we as Christians talk about, Jesus will baptize you with fire and the Holy Spirit, a baptism which involves water as well too. So it's interesting, that connection as well. Numbers 31:27 says, "Divide the booty into 2 parts between the warriors who went out to battle and all the congregation." So the spoils of the war will be divided into 2 portions, those who did the fighting and the community of Israel. The items divided to the warriors will be 1 in every 500 will go to the Lord. And for the people, it's 1 of every 50 living things that will be dedicated for the Levites' usage. So all the gold of the offering that they offered to the Lord from the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds was 16,750 shekels. And then it also notes too, the troops had all taken plunder for themselves, which I'm not sure if they were blessed or not blessed in doing that, but we will probably find out more later. In Numbers 32, then we see the conquest and division of the Transjordan region, and we see the Reubenites and the Gadites come forward with a proposition. Now see, the Reubenites and the Gadites wanted to claim some of the land for themselves and their livestock in the region of this Moab, Midian, or as what it's called, Gilead. So they asked Moses for permission. Numbers 32:6-7 says, "But Moses said to the Gadites and to the Reubenites, 'Shall your brothers go to war while you sit here? Will you discourage their hearts of the Israelites from going unto the promised land that the Lord has given them?'" See, Moses is worried because he sees similarities between the current Reubenites and their ancestors. And Moses recounts the ways in which the Lord punished their ancestors for refusing to act in line with the rest of the tribes. Moses is insinuating if you don't go off to war with them, you will not be holding up your part of the bargain to the Lord. It says in Numbers 32:14, "And now you, a brood of sinners, have risen in place of your fathers, to increase the Lord's fierce anger against Israel." The Reubenites and the Gadites, in order to get around this, they take a vow and they say, "We will not return to our homes until all the Israelites have obtained their inheritance." That's Numbers 32:18. They're planning to leave their children, their animals, all behind to be there in the fortified cities and to be able to be raised up in that land and take care of their flocks. And so Moses says, okay, do what you have promised. And that's in Numbers 32:24. Now, when he mentions it just a few moments later, it's interesting. Another tribe gets added to the list of who will inherit the land of Gilead. The half-tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, gets added in here, saying, Moses gave to them, to the Gadites and the Reubenites, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, the kingdom of King Sihon of the Amorites, and the kingdom of King Og of Bashan, the land and its towns, with the territories of the surrounding towns. So there they will get designated Gilead, but they still have an obligation to fulfill. And then we will wrap up Numbers next time as we finish with the story. But thank you for joining us for this Daily Bread Bible study today.